G'day and welcome to part 11 on the XL250 restoration, and this one is really long. Really long. Stupid, isn't it? The reason I did it was because in the last one I forgot it was number 10, and I put a big 10 there and I pointed at it and looked at it, and my daughter thought that was really cool, but she didn't think it was cool because what I did was cool. She thought it was cool because I did something on a computer that worked, because I'm not very good. Anyway, this one is long because there's a lot of detail on the odds and ends I've been doing on the bike, specifically pistons and stuff like that. So it is quite long because there's a lot of detail. If you don't like the detail, just flick through it. But I've left it there for anyone who might be building an XR and XL to see some of the trials and tribulations of what I've come across. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we left off last time with the motor being put in and so forth. I'm sort of chomping at the bit to get these bits on, sort of really finish it off, new seals, all this. But before we do anything else, we've got to repaint this. It's a little bit rough. I think some of it was attributed to the fact that the gun wasn't cleaned out properly, and so I'm going to redo that first. Okay, so these are the bolts that I temporarily stuck the cases on the motor with, and you can see these are the newly plated ones, but they're all painted, and some have got a bit of dirty crap on the threads. This is a great example. We'll literally leave them in there and just forget about them, and in a couple of minutes you'll take them out and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They're like brand new again, just back from the plates. Most people will tell you can't colour sand enamel, and I'm one of them, but this is the hardest enamel I've ever come across. I put this paint down a few days ago, and it is really sandable. Okay, so I've got a clutch cover here, and there are 3 seals. These two are the same size, decompressor and clutch, and of course the Kickstarter one's here, that's a bigger seal. I'm going to put these in. Now, I'm not going to put the clutch cover or the Kickstarter one in, because I'm going to be putting the cover on and off, or sort of pulling it on and off. These are the 2 that we need to replace here, they're identical. You can verify that by getting a vernier caliper and checking the width of the shaft, if you like, where the seal runs. So although that looks like narrower there, up on that shoulder there it's the same. Of course these can be pushed in just with finger pressure. Alright, now these little guys. I'll do this one first actually, the decompressor. I'm just going to pop a bit of grease around there so it doesn't drag on the seal, and that'll probably accumulate on the outside. Hope it doesn't look too mucky. There we go. Cool. And then the seal will sort of hang on to it while we get these other bits and pieces in, which is this stuff here. There are 3 parts: a spring, a circlip, and the little actuator rod. Oh, there we go. There's the reveal there. So I need to get that circlip on with my handy dandy circlip pliers. But we should have it in now. Where is my itsy bitsy screw stick? Here it is. Push it all the way, and normal practice with a circlip, just make sure it rotates. So I found a just a bit of 1200. We're just going to go around it in an annular fashion. Just sort of going around like this, if you know what I mean. If you go sort of up and down the thing, you don't want to give it any tracking for future oil leaks or whatever. With the clutches, there we go, that's much better, freezer bird. And that of course is the actuation there, and the spring fits in. So, but you know, that's the difference when going through all that. You sort of have a nice case that's painted with new black seals and, you know, plated kit like this, I reckon it looks just 100% better. Alright then. And that goes like this. And it's a bit of a bugger, I think. Particularly if you're like me and you can't see that well. Which bit went in first? Okay, I can see. That's actually great coming from me. If I say I can see, that's a good thing. So we're just going to make sure when we knock this in, there's a bit of resistance, because the last thing we need is that coming out. That will be it there. Just enough to hang on to the spring. I don't like that though. I think the heaviest bit, see it comes off the end. I might revert to the manual to have a quick look. I just had a quick look at the past video, I think it was number 5 or something, just to see how I pulled it apart, and that's how I pulled it apart. So we've got to put the pickup in. The pickup is somewhere. Where did I put it? There it is. There's a couple of things with this. Firstly, that needs to be painted because it looks absolutely terrible, and the old sealant taking off it. And I want to put new braiding on there and sort of poke it into here, so whoops, you can't see it's out of frame, so that it's consistent all the way. And of course some ANS has put these things on. I don't know why you do that. At least get stuff that looks factory. But this pickup effectively goes, Jesus, it goes like that, if you know what I mean. So that would sit in there with a bit of Honda bond, and that would go there, and this cable sort of snakes up through there. It was actually incorrect when I took it out. There's a retainer there in the casting, and so that would just go like that. But before we do that, I just want to revisit this business, get that looking good. Right, so I've got to start cleaning up some threads. I want to start with these because I've got the motor sort of taped up. This is a 6x1 tap, and I'm just going to go in here, just make sure these threads are clean. Given that the frame is powder coated, it's important about these ones being good because it's the earthing is dependent on it. Of course, that's where this goes. If I can figure it out, it goes like that. Is that how it goes? Yes, sir. It goes like this. So your looms sort of plug in here, your flusher cones at the top, and of course your coil hangs down the bottom. I didn't paint this. Traditionally they're black from the factory. I wanted it plated to make sure it gets a good earth. Okay, so let's move down a tiny bit to here. There we go. And wonderful fella called Frank from A1. He righted what I did wrong in that when I drilled this, I think this was the one I drilled here, he recoiled it, and of course there was a tiny raised section he warned us about, so I've just run a what's it called? A file over it just to level it, and of course he's also tapped that out, which is good. I just wanted to check that, which is rather spiffy, so that's good. So put that to the side. We have to take this off. Whoa, and all that tape that we put on. I re-taped this actually because the other stuff had overspray on it, and I didn't want the overspray drying. Is there any muck in there? Now, what we're going to do, a couple of important checks on our barrel. Let me get the barrel for you. So I didn't want to paint this. I wanted it blasted, and you'll see why. Because it looks great. So there it is there. It's been honed as well. That wasn't a hone job I did. The fella that blasted it did it, and he's done a marvellous job. One thing that's easily overlooked with these though, and it involves dentist tools, these are the ones they use to check your fillings, or if you need fillings, is that there is a rubber gasket in here. And we want to put a new one in. And he missed that. And a lot of people wouldn't know they're there. So we need to give that the flick. Of course, our gasket kit, which is nowhere to be seen. Here it is here. has a replacement item there which we need to put in. So that and the base gasket, the only two things we really need to do, we need to put in. I think there are meant to be 3 dowels. Hang on a second. No, there are 2. Just the 1, 2. There's 3 on the base of the head, I think. I'll check that in the manual. But what I want to check for is that these holes here line up with the ones that are in the bike itself. So if we move this, and we use a toilet roll to protect the bore, and we drop it over because we don't want the rod slapping around in there. I just want to make sure that they're lined up because I might have to use a rat tail file in there. These are bastards to get in these things. I'll tell you what, if he got this dead center, which he did, he's a better mechanic than I am. He is a much better mechanic than I am. I fudged it up, so they are going to go in beautifully. How about that? Jeez, I drilled them. I thought they were central, but I can't see a bloody thing. So he came and looked at it and he said, you know what? It was at the workshop at the time, and he said, they're crooked. I said, no, it isn't. He said, take another look, and he was right, and they were. So that is good. That's really good. He got that right on the money. Because I'm just using a rag with a screwdriver over it. A dirty rag, mind you. Just to get in that groove and get out some of that nasty stuff, which is, it looks like grease, but it's more likely to be perished rubber. At the end of the day, it's cleanliness. It's all about cleanliness. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute. I just noticed a mark in the bore, which is purely grot, not not anything else. But I'm referring to using I normally use white t-shirt. I haven't got one at the moment, but if I write that up and down, you can see a little bit of grey residue, like that, which means it's too dirty. So when we assemble our engine, we can't have that. But it's really raining. I want to check Inga. There's a few measurements we need to do after we have more tea. Let's look at the rings. You got a max of 20 thousandths. Ideal is 6 to 10 thousandths. We're approaching that now. We are on 17. So that's cool. Let me take this out nice and square. And repeat for this one. I do it with all of them. Because I just don't want the idea. It's almost better being a tiny bit more slack than it is, hang on, where are we? Than it is being too tight. If it's too tight, these have got nowhere to expand to. And I've got it in crooked. And that is disastrous because you can break lands. You've got nowhere to go, so you can snap a land. Bugger up your board, do all sorts of damage. That one's a bit tighter. Okay, that's good. And again, we pull them out nice and level. And even going to check these. You just don't want any room for error. Now this is a new piston, new rings, old bore. But I'm even going to check the land clearances, because this whole piston kit was like 60 bucks. It's not exactly expensive kit. That's cool. We got that sorted, so we're good there. Now, let me talk about these. I spoke about them before, and then of course the rain said it was too heavy, so I couldn't you couldn't hear what I had to say. Your oil rings are the same. They're just your scrapers, and that zigzaggy thing's your separator, so we're good. We've got a black ring and a silver ring. The black ring will be a cast ring. That will be the second ring down. The silver one's a molly one. That'll be the top ring. Now, by tradition, cast rings are better on an old bore because they bed in quicker. Molly rings are kinder, and they're much better in a new bore. Someone's locking out their brakes. So this is probably a bit of a compromise, having a cast and molly ring. Having said that, loads of manufacturers do it. Ford do it, I know, in their engines, because I've seen that a million times. And replacements are quite often like that as well. So what we're looking for is the correct way to put them. Now, I guess I'll put in, before I put the rings in, I'll just put a pin in. I'll put a clip in, I should say. And I've got a few more measurements to do there. Here are our little clips. I think I'm going to cut that so I don't damage them. So when we put these in, we don't want them lining up with that. We don't want that gap lining up down there. We want it to the side somewhere. And that's the intake. And I'm going to put the piston in this way. So I'm going to put this one in here. I'm going to shove my little pinky in there. And I will swear if this thing pings around the whole garage. Just push that in. It might be easy just pushing that in, eh? And I can hear it seat. And it didn't seat properly. There we go. So it's right at the exit there. Not a bad idea to get a screwdriver or something and just see if it rotates. Yep, we're in. You can just see that rotates there. So we are good. And it's in the groove all the way around, and the gaps here, not there. That's cool. Alright then, so I've got to put these rings on there. Traditionally you would use a ring fitting tool, which I haven't got. Well, I have, but it's far too big for this. And then we gap them according to 120 degrees. Well, that's the tradition that Honda recommend on their engines. Another thing is these must not overlap. They butt together. They don't overlap, and these are exceedingly difficult to see. I'm going to go ahead and fit these. Now what's so difficult on these is you need to make absolutely sure, because when you put these scrapers in, this thing wants to lift out, that both scrapers are in and you can actually physically sight the ends. Oops. And I've no idea if you can see this. They're there. And looking above it will help, so that they will compress all the way in, because if they don't, you're screwed. Now, let's look at these things. We've got a molly ring and a cast one. Sometimes they're marked at the top. That has an R facing up, so I don't know what R stands for, but I'm tipping that that's the top. Now the other thing is also, on the factory ones, they're actually chamfered back this way. And so you can look on the edge of them, and these ones aren't, these are square. So let's go with that. There's no documentation with this, so I'm not actually all that sure. Okay, there's that one. Let's have a look at the top. Oh, it's a square cut ring. Okay. Just wind him on. Right, so there's some rings. Okay, so we've got the clip in there. We've got the pin here, so we've got to do a few measurements now. And make sure, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long, I'm drawing this out, but I'm not doing it intentionally. I want to make sure that I cover everything. And of course we'll clock the rings, but quite often you'll pull an engine apart and you'll find rings lined up and all sorts of things, and you always query the person that put it together. In reality, rings actually rotate, particularly new rings in a new piston like this, they're going to rotate. The thing is, no one seems to understand the science of why they rotate. Or at least at what speed. Some rings will rotate clockwise, some will go anti-clockwise. It's not governed by engine speed either, because you've got, I think they did a test, one of the universities did a test in the United States on a small block Chevy. I don't know how they even did it. The ring was, well, one of them was actually rotating it up to 1 rev per minute. At 2800 RPM, it was virtually not moving at idle speed, and of course at full tilt it wasn't moving much either, but at 2800 seemed to be its sweet spot. And of course they don't understand why it was going clockwise or anti-clockwise, or why this one was going in a different direction to that one. It's actually quite weird, but at the end of the day, there's a few things we do. Honda says 120 degrees. So you're not going to do it on the thrust faces, which are these two here. They're the faces that kick over when the thing goes up and down. And we don't want them lining up with the pin either. So we're going to go across the face of the piston, like that. Like the old 70s ad for the Cross Your Heart bra. So that would mean this one would sit there. The second one. The top one would sit here. Maybe a little bit more, something like that. One's here, one's here. The oil ring would be, the gaps on the both oil scrapers would be 20 millimeters either side of that third 120 millimeter line. So we can rotate that accordingly. Before I do that though, I just want to check the side clearance of the rings. We need to make sure the rings are well and truly embedded in the sides. They go all the way in, which we can see that. If we get a feeler gauge, say, it's only going to be minuscule. I think the wear limit's about 5 thousandths, 3 thousandths. Let's go for 2 thousandths. Now, of course, you don't want too much clearance again because they're going to slap around in there and flog out the lands. The lands are these things the rings are sitting in. And you don't want it too tight because the rings could seize in there. We've got 1.5 thousandths clearance on the second ring. The top one is a little bit tighter. It's probably only got about 1 thousandths clearance there. Yep, that's right. This one needs to be over there more, and this one needs to be over there. Right, so they're clocked where I want them. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of tape. I'm going to fold over one side of it. I'm just going to place that over there for now, and that'll hold the rings where I want them. Just like that. And we'll pop that piston in. This is a fail, but you know what I mean. Right, so that goes this way. And it's time to put a piston in. Alright, get my oil can ready, and we are good. There's another measurement for that too, but we know that one's alright. Tight as a drum. It moves beautifully, so that's cool. You can't measure that on an old piston though. This is regular engine oil. I'm not using assembly lube on these parts. I'll use it on the camshaft and the chain, but I'm not going to use it on these bits here. And the Pistonian intake, of course, goes to the back. Normally you look for marks at the front, but these ones are marked intake at the back. Okay. I'll just push that, and that should slide in. There shouldn't be any binding or interference. That's fine. I've just got some shirts and stuff in there, just on the off chance that I drop the circlip, because I do things like that. And we don't want it going in the crankcase, but it's better going there than around the room somewhere because I'll never find it. Let me have a look. And rotate it about. And that is good. Yep, we're good. Excellent. So there you go, there's a piston installed. I'm just going to leave that tape there for now. We don't want to leave it there for any length of time so it gets any gum on there, but it'll just hold things where I want them until we put the cylinder on. Right, so we have that sitting there. Let's just start understanding a few things. We've got this oil jet here. The 750 has them in the top of the cylinder head. This has them down the bottom. That needs to be clear. But we know that's clear because we can see through it. And we also know it's clear because I blew through it before with compressed air. Now, great. Okay, so let's understand this. We've got an oil jet here that has a passageway that's blocked off by the side of the oil jet to where the cylinder head stud is, or bolt goes. And of course this is how it works. There's a bridge there which allows the oil to travel down that channel, if you like, to where the cylinder head bolt is. And so effectively that is sealed off by a gasket. Oil pressure comes up through here, and you can see that that's got a large shoulder there. That means it has this really big O-ring that goes in there around the locating dowel, which isn't in here, that's over here somewhere at the moment. So that has to go in there to seal against the head and provide the overhead gear with the oil it needs. Now when we get the gasket kit, there's a few things we need to keep in mind. There's a cylinder head gasket, there's a base gasket, pretty easy. This is the big mother sucker that goes around the bottom of the barrel that we dug out before. These two here go on the inspection covers for the valve clearances, so we know what they do. That one we've just spoken about. These will go on the chain tensioners, which are here. They're held in by a flat washer, and there's another one up on the cylinder head as well. They're the exhaust flange gaskets, and this little bloke is for the inlet manifold. So we know exactly what all of these gaskets do, and that's imperative because we don't want spare parts, and we know what we're supposed to be looking for when we put it together. Right, so the best thing to wash the barrel out with is soap and water. once you've washed it out and dried it, use a bit of wax and grease remover or thinner and give it a good wipe. Side to side, up and down. And make sure that you get everything out of there, because it'll act as pumice and wear your rings down. It'll prematurely wear. Now, the other thing with it is, if you just wipe it, chances are you're just moving that stuff around. If you actually use water, you'll flush everything away. And do a couple of checks all around it to make sure this thing is so squeaky there's not a single mark on it. You can literally eat off it. But that last stage of using thinner or Prepsol, whatever solvent you're using, really helps to do that last bit of cleaning really well. Now, given that it's like this, it's going to rust in about 10 seconds. Just get a bit of oil, run it around. Oil's easy to get off because thinners and whatnot will just wipe it off. Now the other thing is that the Honda recommend putting the rings in by using your fingers, and I'm going to use a bone to get them in. I haven't got a ring compressor that'll fit this, but whatever the case, this is pretty much how we want it at the moment. Now I'm just going to go around the base of this thing and give it a wipe, because it's really important this bottom bit's clean. And this is the reason. We have to put in this O-ring, great big one. Wait, hang on a sec. That will roll down and sit in that rebate. Let me just go get my bone. I'll just push that down in there. It'll actually sit in that channel. Now, the other thing, we've got it started, so that's good. I'm not dragging it because I'm going to stretch it. Now, the other thing is this base gasket. Now, this will show up what that bridge does and where it's sending the oil to. Now, I want to put this piston, this barrel on, but I don't want that to fall down onto the deck or onto the block where oil can drip out of here and contaminate it, so I need to sort of glue that down. You could probably use a bit of contact adhesive. I'm going to use a bit of Permatex, I think. Now, but this might not work. Contact adhesive is my first choice for holding gasket up, but the reason I want to use this is because it seals exceptionally well. That's too much. Hang on a second, this is a new jar. And I don't want it oozing out the side because this is supposed to look restored, and if it's got Permatex oozing out of it, it's going to look like it's leaking. I'm just going to stick it there for now. Hopefully that'll stick there. I don't think it's going to, is it? Now we also have to clean up over here. Bit of solvent. And that'll get rid of any sticky residue left by the tape. And we double and triple check. We've got a jet in there. And we've got everything sitting the way we want it to. And the bone actually is plastic and it's very gentle. And I'm already into the oil ring. There we go. Right, so we'll take that out and we lower that down, and we get Permatex off our fingers because it's sticky and it's bloody horrible stuff. Just make sure that gasket's lining up where it needs to, and it is lined up pretty well, though I'm doubtful about that bit there. I just don't want it to cut. Okay, here we go on this side. Gasket's nice and free. Give him a smack and we should be good to go. I'm not going to tighten these all the way down. I'm just going to nip them up gently because they're only sort of down on one side. We have to wait till the cylinder head's actually bolted on to before we do all this, if you know, we want to hunker it down level. We don't want it sort of tightened up on one side only. I've got the tensioners here. This is off the donor bike. This is off this bike, or the good bike, if you want to call it that. The only thing that what I should say before I go any further is these actually do move. This one seems a little bit freer. Just go and get a caliper and I'll have a look. Oops, here's a caliper here. It's a tiny bit thicker, this one here. The wear's not such where there's a big step there. There's only a touch in it. There's only an absolute touch in it. Which one's the cleanest of them? They're both pretty much the same, aren't they? I'm sort of tempted to go with that one again. I think I will. It's got less wear on it. I think we'll go with that. Loose original. I'm just going to throw a bit of brake cleaner there. It's a blind hole, so that's not going to go through to the other side. Give it a nice dose of solvent. That'll evaporate off, so it's not a big deal. Let's get a bit of compressed air and blow it out. I think we'll just stick something in there. I just want that thread clean. And of course we've washed the oops, this one. Washed the bolt as well. And we're going to put the tensioner in now with a bit of Loctite, because we don't want that thing coming out again, do we? Before we do that, I just want to run a bit of assembly lube just across that face. This is the goopiest crap in the world, this. Just leave it on like there. Where are we there? I think it was off camera. And it's this red stuff. It's great for camshafts and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to pop it down. Oh, hang on. We just made the rookie mistake that the last guy did. That spacer needs to go in the back. And we'll just stick a bit of Loctite on here and we should be good to tighten it up and call it a job. There's the spacer into that hole. There we go. Just hope that's not flogged out that thread. It's nice and tight, which is good. This is the one that gave me a fright. It was loose when I disassembled the bike. And this is the one that I was really worried about, because if that drops in there in the primary, we have minced gears and everything. And the moment we start mincing those, they'll mince other things on the way to stationary, if you know what I mean. So that is bad. Cool. I've even got a bit over 9, but she'll be right for now. And we've got to also put this thing in here. That goes in the head. Somehow, got to figure that bit out. Because right now I've got no idea. Oh, we press it. Oh, you tricky little mofo, look at that. That's how you get your tension. Rightio, so looking at this tensioner here, I've just got that sort of finger tight at the moment. The manual states there's a plain washer, an O-ring and a nut. Now I can't find anything in all of the material I had. There's no rebate or channel, if you like, in the back of the head for an O-ring in there. It's just a plain machine housing, and of course there's no nut with anything there either. I think that might be a job for a small amount of Honda Bond once we set up cam timing. So I'll leave that in there for now and revisit it. Now, what I do need to see is this thing, which was awfully difficult to find, and it is a chain guide. Now we've got 2 to choose from, or 3 to choose from. This is the one out of the junk bike, and you can see it's worn. and part of it's delaminated, or at least starting to chip off, I should say, is probably a better word. Condition-wise, it isn't bad aside from that. The one that came out of this motor, of course, has been sawn off. Dave found that. I didn't even see it. It's been sawn off at the top end, so up here, above, inside where the cylinder head would be. Of course, it's missing that whole section there, which is bad. Don't forget too, this one had the piston in it that had been smacked into. The other problem with it, of course, is it's all chewed out and it's starting to come apart there. So we can't use either of those, they're rubbish. Now, I was lucky enough to get a new old stock one, which is this bloke. And it looks to be in new old stock nick. So I can take its little dog tag off. And we'll give it a good visual to make sure it looks absolutely the way it's meant to, which is something we should have done beforehand. And it looks rather spiffy. Can you see that? Looks good. I want to dummy fit it to see what it's like. Because one thing I want to do with this bike is, because I don't know anything about XLs, or very little, I want to know about them quite well once I'm done. Yeah. Come on, mate, what are you doing? Where's that magnet I had? Here it is. There we go. Let's have a bit of a look. So, we have the tensioner itself in. I haven't lubricated this yet. Where's my finger? There it is. I haven't lubricated that yet. I'm just doing a dry run. And having a bit of a sticky down there just to make sure it all looks orthodox and kosher. Where are we down here? Oh, I see. That makes perfect sense. It sits in... Can you see it in... I'm going to stick this towards my mouth. Hang on. Can you see it there? There we go. It's sitting right in the spot it's meant to. So I feel confident. I understand that fully. Of course, when we start putting tension on the chain, it's going to act very well to guide it where it needs to go and stop the possibility... God, I'm a crap cameraman. Stop the possibility of it derailing. That is one thing we just don't want to know about. So that all looks good. I'm very, very happy with that. So you can see a bit of that red there. That's the assembly lube. And so far, that's looking pretty hunky-dory. So I am rather stoked with that. Now the next saga, I've got this leaning against my stomach, is this. The manual shows this with that cam over on this side. I think it did anyway, but of course I might have mentioned in the other one, behind that thrust washer there's a dot pressed into there that lines up with one on that. So when I looked at the photographs, or at least the footage that I'd shot of this before I pulled it apart, that's the way it came off, so I'm pretty confident that's cool. I'm going to dummy fit the case. I'm not putting the gasket on at this point, just to see when I move the Kickstarter if it does actually move the lever as it's supposed to. Further, we've got this little strainer here. It's an oil filter, and that's a chamber down here. There's a slot either side that this sort of goes into. If I can remember how it goes that way. Of course, there's a little mock sump, as it were, and there's an oil pickup underneath here. So, of course, oil drains in down there and it gets drawn in through the strainer. It's the only place the oil can go. The other thing is, of course, we've got basically the thrust bearing, for what we call it, a thrust bearing in car world, but I don't know what the bike guys call it. I'm just going to pop that on. The other thing I haven't done, with no intention of doing it at this stage, is I haven't put that Kickstarter seal on. You can't see it from the angle of the camera. What I'm looking for, I'm not sure if you can see it where you are, is that lever there. Like that noisy. So that's a little bit disconcerting. I don't like that thump sound. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I haven't got the case properly bolted up, but we'll have a look at that as well. Other things, I've got this pickup ready to put in, this one here. Done some dodgy work. I've actually rattle canned that bush, or that grommet, and it is a bit threadbare, the wiring, but we can put some heat shrink on there, so that's cool. First thing I'm going to do is ditch these things, and then pull that out. That's all hard as a rock, we don't want that. We'll use nice new stuff. These wires feel like they're silicon. I don't want to be too overzealous with these because if I crack it, I'm going to be in a spot of bother. Okay, that'll do. This is supposed to go behind that housing and it's too tight. I'm not sure of the reason for that. And it's, oh yeah, I can grab a bit more slack there, that's cool. And I think it needs a new cable tie there. I think the cable tie is supposed to stop the fraying, so I'll just cut that off and get a new one. Cool. Oh, okay. So that should be ready to go on. I just want to check that spring. I'm not all that au fait with that spring. Let's have a look at the other one. Even this this donor bike has provided more good bits than bad. You can see the clutch spring. That's the one off the good bike. This is the one off the donor. So I'm just changing bits over as I see them. Because I'm not satisfied with how it was all set up. I'm sort of reaching over the camera here. Because it was derailing. Well, it wasn't. It was sort of coming off the end, if you know what I mean. So I'll just squeeze that. Can we even see that in frame? Can you see what I'm doing? I'm just putting the spring on down here. Right, so we can stick that on now. I'm going to give it a bit more of a clean. There's a couple of bits of crap in there. Alright, so stick a bit of goop on here, just a bit of slip. And pop that down into the head, making sure it goes home where it's meant to, which is just in that pocket there, which we already know about. Bit of Prepsol. Is that the way it goes? Yes, there's a dowel there. There's a dowel in there. And a bear as well. Yeah, okay, you've heard that before. Right, so we've got the dowels on. I'll just put our lid back on the Prepsol because I will spill it everywhere. And then we go for breakers. Oh, I forgot the seal. Hang on, I've got to put the Kickstarter seal on. Just a moment. Oh, you son of a gun, get in there. I think that's good. It's just a matter of getting over those dowels. And I'm just trying to go really, really gently. Bracket must be for the decompressor. That sort of fits in behind there, I think. Clutch things in the way. Hang on a sec. Just want to get these started. Just like that. Just to hold the gasket there. And then I can have a crack at getting it a bit harder. I think we're good. Right, that's it for this one. Hope you've enjoyed. It's been a long one. I knew it would be a long one, but there was a bit of stuff I wanted to cover. Of course, there are a few bad things about it. The first thing is, I went to put the brake pedal back on, and it's crashing into the case. It is actually bent. I thought it was before I started, but I think we just have to pull it out a little bit. You can see how far it is away from where the rider's foot would go, and of course he's going to be running his boots right up against the case to operate the rear brake, so that's no good. We need to bend that. So that was disappointing, not being able to put that back on. Also, the other disappointing thing is I've chipped paint around where I've secured these fasteners. We'll have a closer look, just a minute. Okay, starting with here. Ball looks gorgeous. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Really, really done well. The hone job on that. There's our ultra rare tensioner here. Where are we going? I'm right-handed. So that's the ultra rare one there. I've just got it sitting there for now. That will be safe once the head's on. So I don't want to move the bike, and I wouldn't dare move the bike with that sitting there on the off chance that it gets broken. It's irreplaceable almost. So what that means is when the head comes, we're going to put the head on and we're all good to go. I thought about dummy fitting the old head with a sheet of plastic between there just so I can get the exhaust done. This is in, this is loose. We need a copper washer or something for that. But it does look quite good. I'm not going to operate the Kickstarter because I've got the timing chain strapped up there. But it's all really, really good. I'm happy with how it's looking. It's rather lovely. So if we look underneath, hang on, if I can lift it up. More of the same, very spiffy, rather lovely. So I do hope you've enjoyed it. So on that note, I'll say thank you very much for watching. Drive safe and enjoy Classic. I'm going to see you later.